is to have others grasp how he thinks, the way his mind works. This is an often neglected feature of caring, if only because caring is most commonly thought of as addressing the emotional needs of patients. But our thinking affects our emotions, and in any case, quite apart from the emotions, understanding a sick person's train of thought, how they rationally frame their life, and the problems it presents is crucial. The person in need of caring has a mind, and that mind needs to be addressed. Speaking the truth, articulating the nature of the illness suffered by a patient, laying out the prognosis, all bear on the kind of caring that addresses our nature as rational beings. There is also the obvious level of feelings and emotions, where the threat of illness to our sense of integrity is translated into fear, anxiety, dread, or depression. Suffering is a word that can encompass the emotion of meaninglessness, where judgment and feeling emerge, or at least seem to, or where the persistence of pain that cannot be fully relieved elicits dread of the future, which promises to bring more of the same. Caring must address the emotions, and empathy is the characteristic term chosen to convey the need for those who do the caring to themselves share, even if in an attenuated way, the emotion of the one being cared for. Caring entails a drawing out of oneself, an identification with the other person, with what the other person is going through, a joining of our feelings with their feelings. To the levels of the cognitive and the emotional, I would add a level of values. Caring requires an understanding of what the stricken or suffering person values in life. That may encompass those goals and commitments that people have in the way they live their lives, what they cherish in their life. It may require grasping what another person might perceive as an evil in her life, or what would constitute in her eyes an unforgivable failure, or what would be considered a dangerous diminishment of qualities and traits she may have cultivated. It may well be that the values of the suffering person are wrong or narcissistic or trivial. That does not matter. For the caregiver, they must be understood and worked with, perhaps even to the point of wrestling with another to see if some self-destructive values or mistaken self-perceptions can be changed before it is too late. The final level I would mention might best be called relational. How does a person in need of care and caring see their relationship with other people? For some people, life with others is easy and open, marked by friendliness and curiosity about others. But there are many people who do not so easily respond to others, those we think of as distant, self-contained, or withdrawn, those for whom life with others seems more a burden than a pleasure. Trying to grasp where a person falls along the spectrum of possible relationships with others is crucial, if only because the caring can be misplaced or beside the point, or worse still, understood wrongly. Good caring works to see how people interact with and relate to others. The person providing the caring has to determine just what kind of person is the recipient of the care. That person with whom the caregiver will work to establish a healing or helping or consoling or affectionate bond. In speaking of the general levels of caring, I've tried to incorporate the different levels with which we as individuals encounter life, with our mind, our feelings, our values, and in our relationship with others. There's a considerable literature on the problem and nature of caring, but it often leaves unclear whether caring should be considered a goal-oriented activity, aiming for a particular outcome, or simply a set of virtuous traits in caregivers, or a type of relationship of one person to another. I believe that to be meaningful, caring must have a goal, both general in nature bearing on what we need as human beings and what we need as particular individuals. If we are treated only as needy human beings, independent of our particularity, the caring may fail. We will not get what we particularly need. Yet if only our particularity is addressed, our sharing in the human condition may be slighted. One way or another, however, caring cannot be unguided without goals. Otherwise, it is likely to miss its mark, not giving us what we need, and after all, that is the point of caring. But the importance of a goal for caring comes out most strikingly when the particularity of a patient calls forth the caring, when we try to understand what kind of caring a patient needs and the caregiver then seeks to provide. I can do no better to bring out this point, however, than to cite some passages from writers who have caught far better than I what might be called the particularity of caring. I will begin with a passage from Tolstoy's masterpiece, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, a story not only about the coming of death, but of the failure of those around Ivan to give him what he needs. Quote, "What tormented Ivan Ilyich most was the deception, the lie, which for some reason they all accepted, that he was not dying, but simply ill, that he only need keep quiet and undergo a treatment, and then something very good would result. This deception tortured him. They were not wishing to admit what they all knew and what he knew. The awful, terrible act of dying was, he could see, reduced by those about him, to the level of a casual, unpleasant, and perhaps an almost indecorous incident. And this was done by that very decorum which he had served all his life long. He saw that no one felt for him because no one even wished to grasp his position." While this passage hardly requires an interpretation, I would note how brilliantly Tolstoy underscores the essence of caring, the need to have one's position grasped. This takes imagination, empathy, and what Ivan most wants, a willingness of others to accept the truth. In his essay, Imelda, the Yale University surgeon Richard Seltzer gives us a different kind of caring, this time coming from a distinguished surgeon who was well known for telling the truth to his patients. Quote, "With the patients, he was forthright. All the facts laid out, every question anticipated and answered with specific information. He delivered good news and bad news with the same dispassion." Yet in a case which Seltzer recounts of another surgeon, the surgeon loses on the operating table a young girl about to undergo a procedure to repair a terrible cleft lip and palate. Knowing the importance of the operation to the girl's mother, who could accept the death of her child, but not the thought of her child entering heaven with such a horrible disfigurement, the surgeon later returns to the corpse and repairs the lip and palate. Dr. Seltzer wishes that he had told the surgeon what it took him some time to see, that this unrealistic act was one of goodness, one of those small, persevering acts done perhaps to ward off madness, like lighting a lamp, boiling water for tea, washing a shirt. Caring, I would say, extends beyond the patient, in many cases, to that of the patient's family, and can extend no less, as in that case, to someone who is dead. All it takes is an act of goodness. Finally, I would cite a splendid passage by the American sociologist Arthur Frank about his own deadly illnesses, a heart attack followed almost immediately by cancer, and about the kind of caring he thinks most important. Quote, "Most people who deal with ill persons do not want to recognize the differences and particularities because sorting them out takes time. Even to learn what the differences are, you have to become involved. Generalities save time. Placing people in categories, the fewer the better, is sufficient. Each category indicates a common treatment. One size fits all. But treatment is not care. Treatment gets away with making a compromise between efficiency and care by creating an illusion of involvement. What makes an experience real is particulars. One person's anger or grief may differ so much from another's that calling them by a common name only obscures what is actually going on for each. It takes time for an ill person to understand her needs, and being critically ill means never being able to keep up with your own needs." End quote. By his emphasis on particularity, Professor Frank says what most needs to be said about caring, that it is caring for this person at this time with this condition in this social or family situation. He also notes a point often overlooked, that while the ill need caring, they may not themselves know what kind of caring. Thus, we are forced back to an important insight about caring. There are many ways of caring and many ways in which patients need caring. A smile may give a patient what he needs, just as a touch may do so. But then again, that may not do it. We need to know just what a patient most needs and what it